Hello, finally, I am here to talk about a proven method to learn English without studying grammar. How is that possible? That's what I'm going to tell you today. If we haven't met before, my name is Tanya, and I am the creator of our She Speaks Fluency program for women. And today, finally, for the last couple of weeks, I have been coming on to talk to you about this, and there's either been technical issues or my electricity was turned off. And so I'm very happy to bring this information to you today. So, what do I mean when I say proven? What I mean is that, and I think this is really important thing to think about when you're getting information on the internet, because what do they mean by proven? And so, what I mean is that this particular method has been researched by a linguist, by a professional whose career, their job, but not only their job, their career is to research these kind of things. They've spent their life researching these things. And then also, many people have used this method to learn their second language, to learn English without studying grammar. So I want to tell you how that could work for you, even if you have been using the traditional methods, the old ways to learn English, which is totally okay. Um, and what you can do now to fit this in to what you're already doing. So, welcome, Ursula. It's great to see you. And Stella, it's oh my goodness. Ursula says the live stream is not running. Can you hear me? I don't understand why it's not working. Um, I don't know. I'm talking and hopefully people can hear me. If you can hear me speaking right now, please send some. Okay, great. Flora says, I can hear you very well. Welcome from Brazil. Let me know where you're listening from, if you're listening live or if you're listening to the recording. Okay, I see lots of people popping on live. The great thing about listening live is you can put your questions in the chat here if you're listening live. And if you're listening to the recording, you can put your questions below. But of course, if you're live, I can answer them much more quickly. So the researcher is Stephen Krashen. Stephen Krashen is the person, I should say, I don't want it to sound like he's the only person, but Stephen Krashen's research has been in comprehensible input, which is a phrase you've heard me say before, comprehensible input. And you've heard me describe what it is, which I'm going to do today. But today I'm also going to give you more around the question, what is comprehensible input and how does it work? So, comprehensible input is the way that we learned our native language. And even though we are now adults, we can still take a lot of that information to learn a second language, to learn English. And for me, to learn Spanish. Spanish is my second language. And I'm currently using only comprehensible input to learn my third language, third or fourth, I'm not sure which one it is. The third one I can actually use, in which is German. And I'm going to make another video about that sometime soon because that has been very interesting for me. But the basics of comprehensible input are that you listen to and read things where you understand most of what they are saying, like 95% or more of what they're saying. And it doesn't necessarily mean you understand each word. The great thing about listening, the way you are listening right now, is that You can understand a lot by my gestures. This is a gesture and my facial expression. When you're reading, that's a little more difficult. So when you're looking for something to read that's comprehensible, it means you can understand it and you could talk about it. You know what it says, you can use that information. Is that sometimes we can listen on a slightly higher level than we can read, or it may be the other way around for you. We are all different. And I am going to tell you my story about how I started using comprehensible input after I had already used a more traditional method to learn Spanish. I'm going to tell you more about that story next week, but today I will just tell you that I started adding comprehensible input into my practice time with Spanish, and my fluency, instead of doing this, started doing this. And what's exciting about that is that I could see, we say, or I could feel the fluency difference. Okay, so let's take a look here what we've got. Hello, Brazil. Hello, Italy. We have people here from around the world. Sudan. I'm here in California, if I forgot to say that. It's great to see all of you. I know it's been a while. Kenya, this is great. We have several continents here listening today. So I'm going to get my notes here so I'm sure I don't forget anything. So let me tell you why studying grammar isn't helpful, but let me also say that if it's helpful for you, I think you should keep doing it. But let me tell you why it isn't helpful and why you don't need to. So it's not helpful because if I study, for example, what is the present perfect? Okay, we use the present perfect for something that happened in the past and it might still be happening. And we use the present tense of the verb to have with a past particle. And what is the past participle part past I can't say this word, past participle. And then if I want to say something like I have read this book before is one of the key words. I'm like, oh, before is one of the key words. I have to think all of these things in my brain before anything comes out of my mouth. But if I have heard people say many, many times, I have read this book before, I have used this type of scissors before, I have used this kind of microphone before, I have used this kind of hard drive before. When I want to say I have used this pencil before, I don't have to do all of that thinking. So, what I'm saying is it helps you to be able to speak more quickly and naturally. There's so much that I could say on that, but I will just remind you, you already know, but I will just remind you that you don't know a lot of the grammar in your native language. Now, some of us do, of course, but unless you're studying to be a linguist, a language teacher, maybe an interpreter, a translator, then you probably don't know a lot of your native language and you can speak it well. So this is the reason why it's not a good idea to use it, and also to show you that you don't need it. You don't need it in your native language. And here's another example. Espy's running around on the floor. You might hear her little footsteps over here. You don't need to know how electricity works to turn on the light. I can turn on, there's a light switch back here. I can turn on that light without knowing how it works. In fact, I don't know exactly how it works. Now, I do know a little more than some because I have participated in building homes, but I don't know how it works exactly. And I can still turn on the lights. I don't have to know how my refrigerator works to put food in it so that the food can be used later. And you don't have to know all the little details about a language to use it. So I hope this is helpful. And I want to know what your questions are so that I can answer them for you. Put a few question marks next to it so that I can find your questions. The third thing I want to talk to you about is that when you learn vocabulary, for example, with a list or grammar in a workbook, it's out of context. SB, what's going on? Can you all hear SB crying? Come on up here, SB. Come here. Come tell us. She wants to go play with the cats, and they are through this door here. And so she's crying. So when you learn a sentence like, I said, I have used this pencil before, it's why are you talking about that, Tanya? We're not even talking about pencils. This is why it doesn't work to study it, meaning grammar, in a workbook or vocabulary in a list. Now, when I say it doesn't work, it would be more effective to say it doesn't work as well as. It works better to understand grammar and vocabulary and all of these things in context. What I mean is in a story, in a conversation, in the news, in an article, in a blog, because now you're getting a whole story, a whole piece of information, and that little piece of grammar is in the whole story. And now it is easier to understand, and you will remember it more, and you can use it better. So, this is why I have created a whole series of story videos. You hopefully have heard some, but they are linked below here if you would like to go and listen to one of my stories afterwards. I highly recommend it. It's a great way to learn vocabulary and grammar. And people will say, I see how I can learn vocabulary, but how am I learning grammar? Well, you're learning how to use the sentences and their structure and the way they work because you're hearing it and you're understanding it. So, this is going to help you when you want to use this information. All right. Mad Props must have something to say about studying grammar. I don't see it. Uh, Stella, can you put it down here for us? And Suna has a question. I had a test about grammar and I didn't do well. I know a little bit about English language. I can speak, but I can't solve the grammar. So I need, let's see, it moved. So I need a method help me to do well. Okay, this is a great question because if you need to take a grammar test, which is totally different than wanting to be fluent. If you want to be fluent, this is different than taking a grammar test. Studying the specific grammar for that test can help you with the test, but the test does not make you fluent. It does not prove your fluency. So, yes, if you do need to take a test, it is probably, I'm actually going to change that to maybe a good idea to study some of the grammar. But if you want to do better on the test and you also want to be fluent, which I'm pretty sure most of you do, then you need to be using comprehensible input with the test. And that reminds me to say, so is the only thing I need to do is listen and read, listen and read. That's it. I don't need to do anything else. Actually, of course, if you want to speak, you need to speak. And I laugh a little because I think this is like if you want to ride a bicycle, you need to ride the bicycle. It is so simple that sometimes we get confused. Like there's so much information on the internet. What should I do? This is one of the things that I do with the women in our She Speaks Fluency program is help them to find this and this and this that works together for you, specifically for you, because there is so much information out there. And if you'd like to have more information about our She Speaks Fluency program, I will put a link below so you can get on the wait list and get more information about that. Uh, Okay, so Stella, yes, I see that, but I mean that I agree with what they said about grammar, but I don't see what they said about grammar. I'm curious what they said about grammar. I'll see if I can find it here. Or maybe they could say it again so we can see it. Alexander asks a good question. What grammar is specific for IELTS? Again, this is a test. I do not teach to the test. Teaching to the test means teaching people to be able to pass a test. Now, I have taught people to pass a test, and I do occasionally. But because I know that taking a test does not help your fluency, I don't do that. Now, there are people, you might be one of them, that need to take a test. And so I'm just going to be very honest with you and say it's not going to help your fluency. But if you need to take the test, then you need to get ready for the test. And I would recommend that you find a teacher who's really good at teaching you how to take the test. And then hopefully you can also work on your fluency. So, what that might look like is a teacher who helps you with the test and also using comprehensible input in your daily life. Okay. Uh, I'm just going to remind everyone, let me see, that we don't put anything political here that is disrespectful or unkind. I just took someone off because we do not say anything on this channel that is to hurt someone else, even if that's not what we meant to do. Okay. Yes, Jibner says, I always forget new words. Partly this is just a part of the process, but also it is because we can't remember words that we're learning in a list or outside of the way they're used. We need to learn them in the way that they are used. Okay, one more thing, which I was looking for the grammar thing to see if this would help us. And okay, first I'll see Dan says, your channel is great, but there are not many videos related to advanced grammar. And that's because you are learning advanced grammar right now. You don't need to study it, Dan. But if you want to study it, there are a lot of great channels out there. And I think it's a great idea to find the teachers you love and to have at least two or three, two or three or four or five, because you never know what happened to me here. I couldn't make a video for 2 weeks. So actually I made an edited video, a story, which you can find linked below, but you need to have more than one teacher and teachers who work with a specific thing. And the thing that I use the most on YouTube is telling people how to use comprehensible input either by itself or with what they're already using. And in my fluency program, I do that and help people with all the grammar and all of the pronunciation and all of the things they need there. So, what if you love to study grammar? This is point number 4. If you love to study grammar, it is fun for you, it is interesting to you, then yes, go ahead and study grammar. I don't want to say that what you're doing that's working for you is wrong. Because if it's working for you, even if it's not working for me, if it's working for you, then I think you should keep doing that. And I think that this is an important part of finding how you become fluent. As long as it's not hurting anyone else, this is key. As long as it's not hurting anyone else, if you find what works for you, this is very important. All right, I want to see if there are any more questions here, and be sure to answer the questions that you have. Alexander, a great IELTS teacher is Paula, no, Paula, at Vox Populix on Instagram. I'm not 100% positive that this is how it is totally, but it's like this that I'm going to put. It's very similar to that. And if you send me a direct message on Instagram or here, put a comment when the video is recorded. I will send you her link. She's fabulous. She has a great program. She knows a lot about IELTS and can really help you with that. All right. I don't see any other questions right now. So, what I want to tell you is if you're ready to practice your English more, go to the link below for the video series I've always got already have linked there. And when YouTube lets me, I will put something here for you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.